Hey there again, football fans. Welcome back for another edition of Griz Tracks. I'm Griz football beat writer AJ Mazzolini.
And I'm Kyle Sample, fellow Missoulian sports writer.
And we're into the season now, and the Grizzlies pulled off an epic upset last Saturday here in Missoula at Washington Grizzly Stadium. One of the better games you're probably going to see all year against four-time defending champion North Dakota State. Came all the way down to the last 2 seconds before the Grizz can punch it in. 38-35, an instant classic.
Yeah, and done in the not-so-typical Bob Stitt fashion, the ISO power run play.
That's right.
Was what put him over the top, and that's kind of like an interesting little storyline within that game.
Yeah, they actually kind of brought in some old fullbacks, some defensive players to be fullbacks there at the goal line. That was a great ending to a game. We got a fourth down play from the one, almost no time left to put him over the top on ESPN. That game had about everything you could really want.
Yeah, and I never thought I would ever say that a 1-yard run was a gutsy call, but they didn't really get a whole lot from that set, and they tried, I think, 3 previous plays in that set, and it didn't work, and then they stayed with it, and it finally prevailed, and like you said, just one of the bigger wins in that stadium's history.
Yeah, no doubt, and they did have one pass play out of the jumbo formation, as they call it, and it, not even close, way out of bounds, so they just kind of stuck with the run. But other than that, Brady Gustafson in his first career start, he had a career day, obviously, because he's never had any days before, but 400 and some yards, 3 touchdowns, and making a lot of the right moves, and a lot of the right reads behind an offensive line that gave him at least a little bit of time.
Yeah. That I thought was the biggest thing, was that if he got enough time, they had a chance, and they gave him enough time to go through his progressions, or at least make the throw that he needed to make on every given play.
Yeah, and he made some big throws, too. We had a couple fourth down conversions. I think they were 4 of 6, including 2 of 2 on that triumphant final drive. And it looks like we're going to get the kind of receivers that, or the kind of seasons for the receivers that Bob Stitt has been predicting. I mean, I'd be shocked if Jamal Jones and Ellis Henderson don't both go over 1,000 yards, both 100 yards in the first game, and easily could have been more.
Yeah, they're well on that pace. Like you said, both over 100 yards. Both had acrobatic catches down the stretch, throughout that game. And Ellis had the 62-yard touchdown. I mean, they were electric. They were everything that I think Bob Stitt expected them to be.
Yeah, and Ellis's touchdown comes on a very long pass play, but off of a play action, kind of a fake handoff, which the defense bid on because John Wynn had been busting off a few carries earlier as well. So the run game also clipping along. Speaking of the run game, that kind of takes us into this week, where the Grizz are going to be hosting Cal Poly at 7 p.m. kickoff in Washington Grizzly Stadium on Saturday. Another home game against a team that will run the triple option and run you right out of the stadium if you're not careful.
Yeah, and as difficult as Grizz fans thought last week was going to be, this week is going to be every bit as difficult, because that triple option is just so difficult to defend, and it just forces every single defender to be assignment sound and not key on any certain one person, just key on their assignment and focus on that. And
the big difference may be that they only have a week to prepare for it. I mean, I know they were probably putting in looks all throughout fall camp, kind of getting ready for week 2, but it's a lot different when you're focusing squarely on one team. And they bring in 2 1,000-yard rushers from last year that are both returning, one being the quarterback, Chris Brown, who's probably one of the best athletes in the Big Sky Conference because he can throw it and he can run it. I mean, the guy had 1,200-some yards rushing last year, 1,400 through the air, 30 total touchdowns. He's going to be the key right in the middle, and either shutting him down or when he gets loose. I think that they're going to win it either on his leg or not, basically.
Yeah, that attack is just so specific, I think, to what Cal Poly does, because like Bob Stitt talked about earlier this week, they will go spread, they'll pack it in, they'll go wishbone the looks, they'll give you so many different looks, they'll cut block you, they'll pull. I mean, they just do so many things that allow Chris Brown and those other backs to get out and lead the country in rushing last year.
Yeah, 350 yards, I think, a game it was last year, leading the country, setting a Big Sky single-season record. And it's because they had the athletes to do it. Slot back, I think, Corey Garcia, I want to say, another 1,000-yard rusher from last year, also back. And they got a fullback who can carry it as well, and the guy's not just going to be doing some blocking. It'll be a really dangerous attack, and completely different than what Montana will have on the other side of the ball. And a lot of what Cal Poly is going to do is basically to keep that away from Montana.
Yeah, it's a very interesting juxtaposition of offensive strategies, but both rely on trying to get or keeping the ball as much as they can. I mean, Stitt last year, I think Colorado was over 30 minutes a game, and Cal Poly tries to get there too. So it'll be very interesting to see which offense is able to win out.
Yeah, for sure. And the Grizz are going to have a little bit of a harder time because their big guy in the middle, Caleb Kidder, the new number 37, is not going to be on the field. He had a nasty injury at the end of the North Dakota State game that we didn't really find out about till midweek. And turns out he had some pooling of blood basically in a leg and had to have an emergency surgery on Sunday. Compartment syndrome, as it's known, to relieve some pressure. So he's not going to be in the middle, and some of those other guys are really going to have to step up and do their role.
Yeah, and it's for Nate Bradley, I think, who replaces him,
right.
And Jamal Wilson. It's going to be their first time against a system like this, and they're going to get cut block a lot, and it's going to be a very difficult game for both of those guys.
Definitely, and they're smaller and hopefully a little speedier maybe than Kidder. Both those guys at 5'10" and 5'11", while Kidder's a 6.5 foot kind of guy. Could probably play a little basketball if he really wanted to. So the other guys are going to have to be quick. They're going to have their head on a swivel out there because things are going to get a little nasty, I'm sure. Again, that game kicks off at 7 p.m. at Washington Grizzly Stadium on Saturday, week 2. Make sure to stick with the Missoulian on Missoulian.com to keep up to date on all the football action throughout the week. And check back this next week for Griz Tracks to see how everything went.